What's your general read right now on kind of market sentiment? It feels like people were real scared 2 weeks ago or so when all the contagion was kind of taking its toll. Now it feels like people got a little bit more relief and might not be as scared. Is that your general sense?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, perhaps rightfully so. Some of the fear that we've seen over the last few weeks has been the most extreme that I've ever personally experienced, maybe rivaled by like the COVID crash. I mean, I remember during the COVID crash, people were wondering if like, the fundamental Bitcoin protocol had like broken or something. Cause I mean, we just had gone down like 50% in a day. But I mean, it has been pretty wild. I mean, every single entity that appears to have been kind of the adults in the room turned out to just be degenerates like the rest of us. So, yeah, I mean, I think some of the fear has been, rightfully warranted, but that doesn't mean, I think a lot of the flushing out of malinvestment and leverage that we've seen over the last month or two will be very healthy for the space long term. And, I think a lot of people have been saying, oh well, this hurts the credibility of the asset class. People aren't going to want to touch this thing with the 10-foot pole because we've got all these Ponzi-nomics in the space and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think when I've at least spoken to some of these traditional finance entities that I don't have a very large circle of, but I would say a handful of these individuals that I've spoken to, they seem to be more excited about this than anything because they've seen this happen many times in the traditional landscape. I mean, for example, like what happened with 3AC, you've seen that take place in traditional markets. I mean, that's not anything that's unique to crypto. So I think some of these guys are kind of starting to get excited about basically buying distressed assets in a marketplace that's experienced a tremendous amount of forced selling and is in a state of, tremendous amount of fear. You've got a lot of, crypto native people that are now questioning even the viability of the space. Perhaps, not on the magnitude of what took place in 2018, but certainly are starting to see some of that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting when you start thinking through how a lot of this balances out, and your references back to 2020, 2018, in bear markets before. I think a lot about there's just more eyeballs. Like I was trying the other day to figure out a good way to analyze it. 50% of all Bitcoin and crypto investors weren't here for March of 2020. Like that was my general guess, right? And maybe I'm off plus or minus, 10, 15% in either direction. But like a very large percentage of people who right now, this second, hold a crypto asset were not around in March of 2020. An even bigger percentage of them weren't around in 2018, right? And you just kind of go all the way back. And so it's like, I don't know, take the like second bear market, it was 2013 or whatever it was, right? 3%, 1% of all people in the market today were around for that. So it's just like so many people are new, they don't have the context of 2020 or 2018. And so, of course, the market cycles to some degree will repeat because those people have to kind of be indoctrinated into what happens as well, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think part of why Bitcoin's cyclicality is so reflexive is because it's such a new asset class. So every cycle, when we run up in price, it's basically like a massive marketing campaign for BTC and the broader crypto market as well. You get a tremendous amount of new users because Bitcoin just hasn't reached saturation. I mean, we did our user adoption, came on here and talked through that report. It's a very, very small portion of the world actually, has any ownership of Bitcoin or any other crypto asset. So every single cycle you get a new amount of, new magnitude of new market participants. And on the move down, some of those people get flushed out and capitulate as, they come to the realization that they really have no fundamental understanding of the asset that they're holding, why they're holding it aside from the fact that the price is going up. And you can see this in the data as well. When we get back into the bear market, some of those individuals that, come into the bull, they stay around. Although again, a lot of them do leave. But the kind of key takeaway is that like every bear market, that base of people who stay is higher and higher and higher. And when you're down 70 to 80% in asset, especially lately, right? I mean, we've got, again, a tremendous, and we can get into this in a moment, tremendous amount of forced selling from basically every type of entity that you could think of in the space. You've got, the worst macro environment that I've ever seen in my short little career in markets. And, you've got all that kind of uncertainty, who's buying down 70, 80%. These are people who are likely relatively, you have some traders that are perhaps looking for like a short-term mean reversion trade, but I would say the vast majority of it are likely, people who are relatively time insensitive, and are looking to, accumulate this asset at a distressed price. And so that, when you're down 80, 85% at the bottom of every Bitcoin bear market, the people that are buying down there, and the quote unquote, cohort of hands that the supply gets concentrated into are those who aren't going to sell most likely for a 20, 30% move. And that's what allows, these moves back to the upside to be so aggressive, in the same way that, the downside moves are so aggressive because the people that are buying, once the asset is up, 10x from the bottom, these are people that are, likely just going to get shaken out once number isn't going up anymore. So these dynamics really cause, a bit more momentum and fuel to the typical, market cycles that you would see in Bitcoin. And again, some of it as well is there's been a lack, at least historically, of a way to kind of tie in Bitcoin to a fundamental valuation. I mean, I would argue some of the on-chain related stuff is the best way to do so that we have. But I do think that kind of exacerbates a lot of the fear and greed around just SOL price action.